They told her she wouldn't feel anything. Desire was a myth on her world. Her kind had outgrown it generations ago, choosing logic over longing, purpose over passion. Sasha had trained herself to ignore warmth, affection, anything resembling attachment. She was built for diplomacy, strategy, and control. Not this, not him. From the moment she stepped onto Earth's dusty landing zone, her senses felt compromised. The gravity was denser, the air warmer, and Andrew, he was heat embodied, eyes too soft, voice too steady. She catalogued his traits out of habit: dark hair that never stayed in place, hands that moved with deliberate calm, a gaze that lingered like it knew her secrets. She hated that she noticed. Standing beside him in the briefing room, their shoulders accidentally brushed. The touch burned. Not pain, something worse, something alive. Her breath caught, but he didn't even flinch. Of course he didn't. He was human. They were used to closeness, to skin, to emotional excess. She moved away quickly, hiding behind cool remarks and clipped observations. But he kept looking at her with a quiet kind of curiosity. As if he saw something beneath the surface she didn't even recognize in herself. Andrew had been assigned to liaise with her delegation. He thought he'd be handling dry negotiations and alien protocol. He hadn't expected Sasha, rigid posture, silver eyes, voice like starlight and steel. She unnerved him. Not just because she was from another world, but because there was something restrained about her, like she held herself back from feeling anything at all. And yet, when they were alone, walking between meetings, sharing long silences, he felt it. Something flickering beneath that mask. He didn't know why he cared. Maybe it was the way she never looked directly at him, unless she forgot herself. Or how she corrected his assumptions but never his kindness. He found himself waiting for her next glance, her next word. She spoke like her voice had weight, like every sentence cost her something. That afternoon, after their third day of tense discussions and lingering silences, he caught her standing alone on the observation deck. Her back was straight, her face expressionless. But her hands were clenched at her sides. He didn't say anything, just stood beside her, a careful distance apart. After a moment, she spoke. "Do humans always feel so much?" He turned slowly. "We try not to ignore it. I don't understand how you function," she murmured, still watching the stars beyond the glass. "Your minds are always pulled, touched, affected. Doesn't it weaken you?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "But sometimes it reminds us we're alive." Silence stretched between them, not awkward, charged. She exhaled, barely. Her breath fogged the glass. "I wasn't built to crave." He didn't ask what she meant. He just looked at her hands, still tense, and said softly, "Maybe you weren't meant to be just what you were built for." She turned toward him then, as if the thought hadn't occurred before. Their eyes met, and for a single, shattering moment, neither moved. Then Sasha stepped back, too fast, too rigid. "This conversation is over." She left without waiting for a reply. Andrew remained, staring out at the stars. He knew now, whatever this was, it wasn't one-sided. And Sasha? Her pulse wouldn't calm. Her thoughts raced like wild electricity. She hated how he made her feel seen, hated even more that a part of her wanted to feel it again. She wasn't built to crave, but her body disagreed. Her heart, if it still existed, was already betraying her. Andrew couldn't stop thinking about her. Sasha, standing on the observation deck, her figure framed by the endless expanse of stars. Her distance had nothing to do with physical space, and everything to do with the fortress she built around herself. He'd been trained to read people, but Sasha, she was a mystery, and the harder he tried to decipher her, the more he wanted to get lost in her. It had been 2 days since their conversation, since her abrupt departure. He wasn't sure what he expected from her, but it wasn't silence. There were moments when she let her guard slip, when her eyes met his, just a fraction longer than necessary, when her lips parted as if she was about to say something, only to stop herself. Every glance, every hesitation was a tug on his chest. His mind, ever logical, told him to stay away. But his heart had other plans. He was starting to believe she was pulling him toward her. That morning, when they entered the shared meeting space, the tension between them was thicker than it had ever been. He could see it in the way her back stiffened as he approached. She took a breath as if steeling herself. "Andrew," she said, her voice clipped. "We need to finalize the trade agreements. You will remain neutral in the discussions, correct?" Her eyes were cold, detached, just like before. Yet he could feel the energy between them, the unspoken thing that hummed and pulsed beneath her skin. "I'll stay neutral," he said, keeping his tone level. He needed to be careful. He had to be careful. One wrong move, one wrong word, and he'd push her away forever. But he could feel the weight of her proximity, the tension in the air that wanted to crack. The conversation moved forward, but Andrew's mind couldn't focus. All he could think about was how much he wanted to reach out. Just once. And then, without warning, he did. As the meeting broke up and the others left, Andrew turned to Sasha, his steps almost instinctual. He could see it in her eyes, the quiet storm she fought to contain. "Wait," he said, voice low. "I need to know. What are you afraid of?" Her gaze flickered, but she didn't respond immediately. For a moment, he thought she might walk away, but then she didn't. "I'm afraid of this," she said, voice strained but steady. "Of feeling, of letting something, someone, into my mind, into my thoughts." Andrew stepped closer, his heart racing now, each pulse thudding in his ears. He could smell her, feel her heat in the small space between them. The pull was undeniable, the attraction so raw, so powerful, it felt as if the room itself was pushing them together. "You're afraid of me," he whispered, his voice carrying just the right mix of understanding and desire. His body tensed, as if he too was holding back. The last thing he wanted was to make her feel cornered, but the magnetic force between them was too strong to ignore. Her eyes softened, just for a second. "I'm not supposed to want you," she murmured, barely audible, "and yet, every time you come close, every time you speak, I—" Before she could finish, she cut herself off, as though saying it aloud would make it real. Her face twisted with frustration, the desire inside her too strong to contain. "I'm not like you," she added, her voice tinged with something close to pain. "I wasn't built to need, to crave. You're human. You can feel everything. You don't have to fight it." Andrew moved even closer. His hand hovered, as if unsure of how to reach for her without breaking something fragile. "I know you're not like me," he said softly. "But you don't have to be. Not with me. Sasha, I'm not asking you to change. I just want to be close to you." Her breath hitched, and for a moment, it felt like the universe was holding its breath. Her heart pounded in her chest, a fierce rhythm that mirrored his own. She wanted to say something, push him away, question her emotions, ask if this was all real. But her body was already betraying her. It hummed with the tension, the need. And when her gaze flickered to his lips, she knew she was done for. The silence between them stretched out, thick and suffocating, until Sasha made a choice. She tilted, her head ever so slightly, her eyes now blazing with something that wasn't anger, but longing. She didn't say it aloud, but the message was clear. "I want you too." And then, without thinking, Andrew closed the gap. Her body responded almost immediately, but it wasn't the kiss that mattered. It was the warmth of it, the understanding that had passed between them. A connection neither could deny anymore. As they pulled apart, Sasha's eyes were wide, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. She looked at him as if she couldn't quite believe what had just happened. But neither could Andrew. He'd just crossed a line, and the weight of it settled heavily in the air. "I didn't mean to," he started, but she stopped him. "You didn't," she said, her voice low. "But now, we'll have to figure out what this means." And in that moment, Andrew realized that no matter what the future held, he wasn't going to let go of her. The days that followed were a blur, tension crackling in the air like static, thick enough to feel. Neither Andrew nor Sasha could look at each other the same way again, but neither could ignore the pull. It hovered between them, a force neither had the power to push away. Every time they spoke, every glance shared, it felt like something was being written between them, something neither of them fully understood. Andrew tried to stay professional. He tried to focus on the tasks they had at hand, but every time his mind wandered, it returned to Sasha. Her sharp eyes, her rigid posture, the way her voice softened when she spoke to him. Even now, sitting across the table from her in the briefing room, he couldn't shake the heat of that moment, how she'd looked at him, as if she were both terrified and exhilarated. Her lips still tingled on his mind. Sasha, for her part, kept her distance. She hid behind her duties, behind the cold, controlled exterior that had always kept her safe. Her body had betrayed her once, but she would not let it happen again. Not here. Not now. And yet, every time Andrew's eyes met hers, her stomach fluttered. The last kiss, the way his hands had hesitated before touching her, the warmth of his lips, soft yet insistent, kept replaying in her mind. She couldn't forget it, no matter how hard she tried. She wasn't supposed to feel this way. She wasn't supposed to want him. Her species was not built for desire. They had transcended the weakness of craving. But Andrew, he made her want everything she didn't understand. "You're quiet today," Andrew said, breaking the silence that had stretched between them for too long. Sasha looked at him, her gaze sharp and calculated. "I'm thinking." "About what?" he asked, his tone light, but there was an undercurrent of something raw and questioning. "About how you managed to get under my skin." She didn't mean to sound so cold, but it came out that way, her words clipped and hard. Andrew leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving hers. "I didn't try to." "You don't have to try, Andrew," Sasha said, her voice low. "You just do. It's as if your presence pulls at something inside me, something I don't understand. I didn't mean to." He started to apologize, but the words stuck in his throat. But Sasha held up a hand, silencing him. "I don't want your apologies. I'm not weak. I don't need your pity. I'm trying to control this. I have to." "Control what?" She hesitated, the vulnerability she felt swirling inside her, threatening to rise up. "Myself. I can't." Her voice faltered, and she looked away, as if afraid of what she might say aloud. Andrew didn't move. His heart ached for her. The walls she'd built around herself, the way she hid from her own emotions, it was like watching someone suffocating in plain sight. She didn't want to need him, but it was already happening. "Why don't you just let go?" he asked softly. "Just feel, for once." Sasha's eyes snapped back to his, filled with something fierce. "I can't. I wasn't made for this. I was built to serve, to lead, to keep my emotions in check." Andrew's breath caught in his chest. "You think I'm asking you to change? I'm not. I just want you to be real with me. You don't have to fight everything, not with me." The silence between them was thick, filled with unsaid things. But it was different now. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was intimate. They weren't hiding anymore, not from each other. Sasha swallowed, the weight of his words sinking deep within. Her. And what if I can't? She whispered, her voice shaky. Then I'll be here, Andrew said, his tone steady, unwavering. You don't have to do it alone. She felt it then, the tenderness in his words, the unwavering sincerity. And for the first time, she wondered if maybe she didn't have to fight this. She didn't have to be alone. But even as she allowed herself the thought, a wave of doubt crashed over her. What did this mean? What could it mean? She wasn't supposed to fall for a human. She wasn't supposed to need someone like him, someone so fragile in comparison. But Andrew wasn't fragile. He was strong. And maybe that was the part she didn't understand, the strength that came from love, from acceptance, from vulnerability. You're not like anyone I've ever met, she murmured, more to herself than to him. I'm glad, Andrew said softly. I don't want to be like anyone else. I just want to be the one who's here for you. His words lingered in the air, heavy with promise. Sasha didn't know what to say. Her throat felt tight, her chest aching in a way she couldn't explain. All she knew was that she didn't want to walk away. Not this time. Then don't leave, she said quietly, before she could stop herself. Andrew's eyes softened, his gaze never leaving hers. I won't. And for the first time, Sasha allowed herself to believe it. Maybe she didn't have to fight this after all. Sasha couldn't remember the last time she had allowed herself to feel anything beyond duty. Everything in her life had been about control, about maintaining her status, about protecting her people, about being the cold, calculating leader she had been raised to be. And yet, standing here with Andrew, her walls were crumbling. She could feel them cracking piece by piece, like the fragile barriers they were, and every time she looked at him, she couldn't ignore the feeling of longing. The warmth of his hand, brushing hers during their conversation, still lingered on her skin. She hadn't meant to react the way she had, but her body betrayed her. His touch had sent something electric racing through her veins, something alien, something she couldn't explain, and it terrified her. What's wrong? Andrew's voice cut through her thoughts, gentle but insistent. He stood just a few feet away, his eyes never leaving hers. You're distant again. Sasha blinked, her breath catching in her throat. She had to stay composed, had to keep the distance. I'm not distant. She paused, searching for the right words, but they all seemed to fail her. She trailed, off, frustration welling up inside her. She wanted to explain, to tell him the truth, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. She couldn't tell him that her feelings for him were far more complicated than she was willing to admit. Andrew stepped closer, his eyes softening as he read her silence. You don't have to hide from me, Sasha, he said, his voice low, and filled with an understanding that made her chest tighten. I'm not going anywhere, not unless you push me away. She wanted to. She wanted to shove him away, to stop herself from falling into something she couldn't control. But there was no force in the universe strong enough to make her take that step. She swallowed hard, the knot in her throat threatening to choke her. I don't know how to stop this, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. I've never felt like this before. I don't know what it is, but it feels dangerous. It's not dangerous, Andrew said, his voice reassuring yet full of emotion. What's dangerous is pretending it's not real. You don't have to fight it, Sasha. You're not broken for feeling. You're not weak. Sasha's breath caught in her chest, and for the first time in a long while, she let herself breathe. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the sincerity in his eyes. She saw the way he was standing there, so sure, so certain in his feelings, and something in her cracked even further. Why are you so sure? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Andrew smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. Because I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Sasha felt a wave of something, hope, maybe, sweep over her. Hope was a dangerous thing. A thing she didn't trust. But with Andrew, it felt like something she could cling to. Like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she had always believed. She stepped closer to him, the space between them shrinking until only inches remained. His warmth was intoxicating, his presence overwhelming. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong beneath her fingers, and she couldn't stop herself from reaching for him. The moment her fingers brushed the fabric of his shirt, she knew there was no turning back. His body reacted immediately, his muscles tensing and his breath hitching. She felt the sharp intake of air as his chest rose, and something inside her clicked into place. This was real. This connection between them. "Don't want to hurt you," she whispered, her voice strained. She wasn't sure if she was speaking to him or to herself. Andrew cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle but firm. His thumbs brushed the edge of her jaw, sending sparks of sensation coursing through her skin. "You won't," he said, his voice steady and full of conviction. "You're not going to hurt me, Sasha. I trust you." Sasha's heart hammered in her chest, and the words, the doubt, the fear, everything seemed to dissolve in that moment. There was only him. Only the intensity of the connection they shared, drawing them closer, pulling them towards something neither of them fully understood. She could feel her breath coming faster, the tension between them building until it became something tangible, something that made her pulse race. Her heart beat faster, every inch of her body alive with the need to be closer, to feel him more. "You're not afraid of me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Not with fear, but with something else, something deeper. "Not anymore," Andrew said, his lips brushing against her forehead, his voice a soft promise. "I don't want to be afraid of you, Sasha. I want to understand you, all of you." She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his words sink in. The last remnants of her resistance faded away, and the truth of what she was feeling became undeniable. Sasha's fingers moved to the back of his neck, pulling him closer, feeling his heat. There was no space left between them now. She could feel his breath, the warmth of his body, the rhythm of his heart matching her own. Her lips found his, tentative at first, as if she were testing the waters. But when he kissed her back, slow and deep, it was like everything else disappeared. She melted into him, her body responding instinctively, without thought, without hesitation. The kiss was tender, but it held an urgency, a hunger that neither of them could deny. When they finally pulled away, the world around them seemed to slow, the intensity of the moment settling into something softer, yet no less powerful. "I don't want to let you go," she whispered, her forehead resting against his. "You don't have to," Andrew replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time, Sasha allowed herself to believe him. The days that followed were a blur, yet every moment with Andrew felt like an eternity. One suspended in time where nothing else mattered. Sasha tried to maintain control, tried to hold on to the distance she had always kept, but the more time she spent with him, the harder it became. Every glance, every touch, every word exchanged, left an imprint on her soul, pulling her deeper into something she was not prepared for. Sasha's internal battle was relentless. Her duty, her mission, her very identity, everything she had been, taught since childhood, told her to stay distant, to stay in control. She had been raised to suppress emotions, to see them as weaknesses, as flaws. But with Andrew, everything felt different. His kindness, his patience, the way he never asked her to change but only wanted her to be herself. It was overwhelming. He didn't push her. He simply was. And it was enough. One evening, as the two of them sat together, The silence between them stretched, comfortable but charged. Sasha had begun to relax in his presence, a luxury she hadn't allowed herself in years. Her usual tension was replaced by something else, something softer, more vulnerable. Andrew looked at her, his eyes never leaving her face. He could see the struggle in her, the way she wrestled with the emotions she couldn't express. He knew she was holding back, but he also knew she was changing. Slowly, piece by piece, she was beginning to trust him. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his voice low but filled with concern. Sasha looked away, staring out the window into the darkening sky. The stars were just starting to appear, far off and distant, so unlike her, so unlike them. "I don't know," she confessed, her voice quieter than usual. "I've never felt anything like this. Not with anyone. I'm not built to feel." Andrew reached out, his hand resting gently on hers. "That's not true. You're not broken, Sasha. You're just different. And that's okay." She turned to him, meeting his eyes, her heart pounding in her chest. "But I'm not like you. I don't need things the way you do. I've never needed anyone. I've always been independent." Andrew's thumb brushed across her hand, his touch tender. "I don't need you to be like me. I just want to be with you, Sasha, however you are. You don't have to change for me. You don't have to fight this feeling either. It's real, and it's here. And I'm not going anywhere." The sincerity in his voice struck her deep. It was a quiet promise, but it was more than enough to make her heart ache. She hadn't allowed herself to think about a future with him, hadn't dared to imagine the possibility of something more. But now, she found herself wondering, what if she could let go? What if she didn't have to be the strong, detached leader anymore? What if she could be something else, something softer? "I don't know how to do this," she admitted, her voice small, fragile. I've never wanted anyone before. And now, with you, it's like I can't control it. I can't control myself." Andrew's heart swelled at her words. He understood. He understood in a way that no one else could. "You don't have to control anything, Sasha. Not with me. You don't have to fight it." Her lips parted as she took in his words, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel something other than fear. She had always fought against the idea of surrendering. Always been so sure that her emotions were a threat, something that could unravel everything she had worked for. But now, standing in front of Andrew, she realized that maybe, just maybe, letting go wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. The air around them felt charged, thick with anticipation. Sasha's pulse raced, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She could feel the heat between them, a magnetic pull that seemed to draw them closer. Closer until there was no space left. She couldn't deny it any longer. She wanted him. Slowly, almost hesitantly, she reached for him. Her fingers brushed his jaw, soft and tentative, as if testing the waters. He responded immediately, his breath quickening, his eyes darkening with emotion. There was no more pretense between them. No more walls. No more hiding. "Sasha," Andrew murmured, his voice thick with desire. "You don't have to be afraid of this. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. I'm yours." The words hit her like a wave, washing over her, drowning her in their sincerity. Her heart clenched. She didn't know how to say what she was feeling, but the truth was there, in the way she looked at him, in the way her body reacted to his touch. Before she could stop herself, she closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his. It was a soft kiss at first, tentative, testing the waters, but then it deepened, a hunger igniting between them. Her hands found their way into his, hair, pulling him closer, needing more. The kiss was a slow burn, a slow realization that they were both craving the same thing: connection, trust, something neither of them had thought they could have. Andrew's hands slid around her waist, drawing her closer until her body was flush against his. His heartbeat echoed in her ears, steady and strong, just like the feelings that had been growing between them. She wasn't afraid anymore. She didn't need to be. Sasha's mind screamed at her to stop, to remember who she was, what she had been raised to be. But it was drowned out by the warmth of Andrew's touch, the certainty in his arms. The quiet promise that no matter what happened next, they would face it together. When they finally pulled away, both of them were breathless, their bodies trembling with the intensity of the moment. Sasha pressed her forehead to his, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know what this means, but I can't turn away." "You don't have to," Andrew said, his voice low and filled with emotion. "You never have to." And in that moment, Sasha knew, no matter where, this would lead, no matter how complicated it might get, they would face it together. She wasn't alone anymore. The night was thick with unspoken words. Neither Andrew nor Sasha could find the right things to say after that kiss. The kiss that had shifted everything between them. A kiss that had moved them beyond the fragile, tentative bond they had built into something deeper, something irrevocable. Sasha lay beside him, her body still thrumming with the aftershocks of the intimacy they had shared. She had never experienced anything like it before. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual even. She could still feel the warmth of Andrew's hands on her skin, the way his touch made her feel like she was alive in a way she had never felt before. It was so powerful, so undeniable. But as she closed her eyes, a cold, harsh realization swept through her like a wave. What now? Her thoughts spiraled as she felt the tension settle back in. There was no going back now. She couldn't pretend anymore, not after everything they had shared. And yet, there was still so much between them, so much they didn't know about each other, so many worlds that divided them. Andrew seemed to sense her shifting thoughts, for his arm wrapped around her tighter, pulling her close. "Hey," he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "What's going on in that head of yours?" She sighed softly, feeling her body relax against his as his warmth engulfed her. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted, her voice fragile. "I've spent so long keeping my emotions locked away. I've spent my whole life fighting against the things I feel, the things I want. And now I don't know what to do with it all." Andrew pulled back slightly, enough to meet her eyes, his expression serious but gentle. "You don't have to do anything, Sasha. You don't have to figure it out right now. We have time." His hand brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers soft against her skin. "What we have, it's not something you need to run from, and it's not something that has to make sense right away. We're both learning, together." Her heart skipped at his words. He was right. She didn't have to have all the answers. She didn't have to fix everything. For once in her life, she could just be herself, be with him. Sasha took a deep breath, the tension slowly easing out of her. She had always been so focused on control, on being perfect, on never letting her guard down. But Andrew had taught her that vulnerability wasn't a weakness. It was a strength. He made her feel like she didn't have to be perfect to be worthy of love. She had spent so long trying to protect herself from the rawness of human emotion. But now, with him, she saw that it wasn't something to be afraid of. It was something to be cherished. But there was still that voice inside her, the one that told her she was too different, too far removed from the world she had once known. She wasn't like the humans Andrew was used to. She was an alien, a creature from a distant world, And no matter how much she might want this, she couldn't escape that truth. "What about the future?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "What happens when we're faced with the realities of what we are? We're from different worlds, Andrew. There's no easy way around that." Andrew's expression softened, his gaze never leaving hers. "I know, and I won't pretend that it's going to be easy. But I also know that nothing worth having comes without challenges. The world may be different, but we're not. We're the same in all the ways that matter." Sasha's heart swelled, but she couldn't shake the weight of her doubts. "But what about the others? What about the people who will never accept us? Will you still be willing to fight for me when it all gets too hard?" Andrew didn't hesitate. His fingers gently cupped her face, lifting it so that she could meet his gaze fully. "Sasha, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I care about you. And I care about what we have. If I have to fight, I will. I'll fight for us, for this. I'm not afraid of what the future might hold, as long as we're in it together." Her breath caught in her throat at his words. The vulnerability in his eyes mirrored her own, and, in that moment, she realized just how much she had come to trust him. For so long, she had kept herself locked away, afraid of opening up, afraid of what it might cost her. But Andrew wasn't asking her to be something she wasn't. He wasn't asking her to change. He was accepting her, alien nature and all, and, for the first time, Sasha allowed herself to believe in something more. She allowed herself to believe in them. Sasha shifted, her fingers tracing the curve of Andrew's jaw. She couldn't deny it anymore. The way he made her feel, the way his presence soothed the chaos inside her, was undeniable. They were two worlds, two species, bound by something far deeper than biology. It was emotion. It was connection. The night stretched out before them, long and full of possibilities. She wasn't sure what the future would look like, or how they would navigate the path that lay ahead. But she knew one thing for sure. She didn't want to face it without him. With a soft smile, Sasha pressed her lips to Andrew's again, the kiss slow and tender. She could feel the weight of everything between them, the uncertainty, the fear, the hope, all wrapped up in that kiss. And as she pulled away, she whispered against his lips, "Together." "Always," he responded, the promise of the word filling the space between them. For the first time, Sasha allowed herself to fully embrace the unknown. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever barriers they would have to cross, they would do it together. And that was all that mattered. Their journey wasn't over.